So, Tracee, first off, congratulations on your Golden Globe win.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What went through your mind when they called your name?
I don't know that a lot went through my mind, sir. There was a lot that went through my body. There was a lot of flutters and things and all of that. Truthfully, at first, I was just sort of shocked and excited. And then there was a moment, as I watched it back, I see it. There's a moment I take a deep breath and I actually enter the room in a very real and present way. And that's when a lot of those words sort of came to me and through me. And, you know, I think that the sort of meta and mega conversation around the larger context, not about my personal experience of what this was like to win, but what it meant in terms of our industry at large, the stories that we tell and how we put attention on which ones, and how long it had been since a Black woman had been nominated and won, was really what was on my mind and what felt important to me about that moment, not necessarily what it personally meant for me.
And not to throw some stats at you and make you nervous, but last Black actress to win in your category at the Emmys, Isabel Sanford for the Jeffersons.
Yes, I'm aware.
30 years ago. What would that mean for you to win this year?
I don't know that it would mean as much for me as it would note something for all of us that is not necessarily my personal responsibility, but all of our responsibilities in terms of how we are telling stories and what we, how we want to be portrayed as humans, and the diversity and complexity of that, and how we need to do better.
And on Blackish, you guys get the opportunity to tell a lot of interesting stories that deal with hot button issues.
Yeah.
How do you find the comedy in that?
You know, honestly, it's strangely quite easy. I think that it comes from the fact that the writing is so good. So the character specificity and the fact that these characters have become so clear that the reality of the experience is that humor comes through. You know, I think humor is always about telling the truth. It's not about trying to be funny. And who these characters are and their flaws and their points of view allow for humor in the context of a lot of these heavier subject matters. And it's just incredibly well written.
Absolutely. One episode I think about in terms of your characters is the one where you're upset about your son dating a white girl.
The being biracial episode.
Yes, I mean, it really deals with something that you don't see on television a lot.
I agree. Well, first of all, let's just backtrack and say I've not seen a mixed character on television that is openly, it's such a strange thing to say, but openly of mixed heritage. Yeah. I am of mixed heritage, and I have never played a mixed person on television, which is really interesting. You know, so the fact that we explored that, and then, like our show does, the way we entered into that subject matter was so fascinating to me. The fact that this liberal, hippie, feminist, doctor, open-hearted, like, mom would have issue with her teenage son, who she adores, dating a white girl, was so funny to me and like bizarre that was how we got into exploring Beau's identity. Was so great and so smart, and really opened up a world. And then one of my favorite parts of that episode was the cartoon, which we often do and is a wonderful device that our show uses that I think has become a part of the DNA of our show, is that in order to place this subject that we are talking about into the larger context historically of how that has been placed in our culture, is handled in a cartoon that kind of gives you the overview, is so fucking smart. I mean, they just, even in the election episode, or in the voting episode, not lemons, but the actual voting episode, The cartoon we did there was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because it makes something digestible that is a lot, first of all, new information for many people, and somehow it just like plays into the whole thing and doesn't answer any question in some major way, but instead shares a lot of new information. So I have no idea what you asked me.
I was just asking you about that episode.
Yeah, that episode was just really smart. And the fact that, this season we introduced my siblings.
Yes.
Which was like so fantastic for many reasons. But in the dynamic of the show and the dynamic of the Johnson household, to be able to see that Beau's point of view was not an outlier point of view, but instead is a point of view that actually is sourced in something, and that there are other human beings that have that same experience, actually gave a balance to this family, and also a depth to my character in a way that I didn't even know wasn't there. And so it felt, there was a scene, the first scene that we shot, when it was Dre and Ruby, and then I'm standing there, and Ruby comes in, and it's the regular dynamic that we always do, where I feel like clobbered. Beau feels clobbered by the Johnson sort of limited stereotypical point of view that makes her want to go crazy, or more just like roll her eyes. And then, but all of a sudden, Johan was standing behind me, and instead of me Beau taking it on, she literally just looks at her brother. And I commented, they said cut, and I was like, oh my God, that was so great. It was like so different. And it just gave this whole different weight to the point of view that Beau has been holding.
I love your brother, by the way.
Oh my God. Yeah. David is so good.
Beau's pregnancy, having that through line throughout the season, can you talk a bit about what that added to her character?
I don't know. A belly, for sure. I thought it spawned really interesting storyline around the work stuff, and what that means. But interestingly, we didn't play the pregnant. Mm-hmm. It was just, what I loved about it is the many women in my life that have been pregnant, are pregnant, have had children, have continued on in their daily activity and daily experience as they do. It is no longer in our culture a thing where you go somewhere and sit and be pregnant. It is, you're just living your life. And I think that's really what we portrayed this season, is Beau continued being Beau. There were a couple of specific things that came up here and there, but mostly I was just being Beau.
Tracee, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay!
Am I your